Now let's begin. Malcolm Dunn had learned 3 essential truths in his 38 years. Trust your instincts, document everything, and never underestimate the capacity for human betrayal. The first 2 had made him successful. The third was about to save his life. He stood in the kitchen of his craftsman-style home in Portland, watching his daughter Lily methodically arrange cupcakes on a tray. At 11, she had inherited his methodical nature and his late mother's gentle spirit, qualities that made what was coming even more unconscionable. "Dad, do we really have to go?" Lily asked, piping purple frosting onto the last cupcake. "Aunt Dolores always looks at me like I'm going to break something." Malcolm smiled despite the knot in his stomach. "Just a few hours, kiddo. We'll make an appearance, and then I'll take you for ice cream on the way home." "Triple chocolate? Is there any other kind?" Evelyn swept into the kitchen, her Chanel perfume preceding her like an announcement. His wife of 12 years had always been beautiful, sharp cheekbones, glossy black hair, the kind of elegance that turned heads in restaurants. Lately, though, Malcolm had noticed how that beauty felt like armor, something she wore to keep the world at a distance. To keep him at a distance. "We're going to be late," she said, not looking at him. Mother hates when people arrive late. Malcolm caught the edge in her voice, the same brittleness that had crept into their marriage over the past 8 months. He'd first noticed it last April, right after he'd declined to invest in her brother Ryan's cryptocurrency venture. The distance had grown incrementally. Missed dinners, separate bedrooms under the guise of his snoring, her phone always face down on tables. 3 months ago, his instincts had begun screaming. Small things. Evelyn's sudden interest in their financial accounts, questions about his business assets, her insistence that Lily spend more time with Constance, her mother. Larger things. Finding a consultation form from a family law attorney in her car, quickly explained away as helping a friend. The way she'd started documenting his every interaction with Lily, her phone appearing whenever he helped with homework or made dinner. Malcolm was a clinical psychologist who specialized in family dynamics and trauma. He knew the signs of parental alienation. He knew what a custody setup looked like. So he'd done what he did best. He'd investigated. "Ready, Lily Bean?" He helped her carefully pack the cupcakes. As they drove through Portland's tree-lined streets toward the Blackwell residence in the West Hills, Malcolm reviewed his mental checklist. The small recording device in Lily's bag was active. The documents were in the sealed compartment exactly where they needed to be. His attorney, Walter Luna, was on standby. Everything was positioned like pieces on a chessboard. The question wasn't whether they'd make their move tonight. Malcolm had overheard enough of the phone calls, had enough evidence to know tonight was the night. The question was whether his countermove would be enough to protect his daughter from what they'd planned. The Blackwell house was a monument to new money. All glass and steel perched on a hillside, the kind of architectural statement that screamed wealth but whispered insecurity. Ryan Blackwell had made his fortune in the early days of tech startups before transitioning to increasingly dubious ventures. Malcolm had never trusted him, and Ryan had returned the sentiment with barely concealed contempt. Dolores Blackwell opened the door, her smile sharp as cut glass. She was Evelyn's sister-in-law, married to Ryan, and had appointed herself the family's social coordinator and moral authority. Her eyes swept over Lily with an expression Malcolm had seen before in his practice, the look of someone cataloging evidence. "Evelyn, so glad you could make it." "And Malcolm?" Her tone cooled perceptibly. "Lily, sweetheart, you look lovely. Is that a new dress?" "Dad bought it for me," Lily said proudly. "How generous." Dolores's smile didn't reach her eyes. Come in, come in. Mother Constance is in the solarium." The house was full of the Trans and their circle, old Portland money mixed with new tech wealth. Malcolm recognized several faces. Hugh Kelly, Ryan's business partner, always ready with a too-loud laugh and wandering eyes. Geneva Walters, Constance's oldest friend, whose opinions carried weight in the family's social hierarchy. Nicole Preston, Evelyn's cousin, who'd recently divorced and seemed to view Malcolm with predatory assessment. Constance Tran held court in the solarium like an empress surveying her domain. At 68, she maintained the imperious bearing of someone who'd married well and never let anyone forget it. Her late husband had built a commercial real estate empire. She'd inherited the crown and wielded it with precision. "Malcolm," she offered her cheek without warmth. "Still working with troubled families, I hear?" "Someone has to help them, Constance." He kept his voice pleasant, aware of the audience. Yes, well, noble work, I suppose. Though I wonder if it leaves you enough time for your own family. Her gaze drifted to Lily, who stood close to Malcolm's side. The child looks thin. Are you feeding her properly, Evelyn? Mother, please. I'm just concerned. A girl her age needs proper nutrition, proper supervision. Constance's eyes fixed on Malcolm, especially with both parents working such demanding jobs. There it was. The opening salvo. Malcolm had heard variations of this for months, subtle digs at his parenting, questions about Lily's well-being, suggestions that perhaps she needed more stability. Lily's perfectly healthy, Malcolm said evenly. Her pediatrician confirms it at every checkup. Doctors can miss things. This from Ryan, emerging from the crowd with a tumbler of bourbon. Emotional neglect doesn't show up in blood tests. The room had gone quiet, conversations tapering off as people sensed confrontation. Malcolm smiled. You're absolutely right, Ryan. Emotional neglect is insidious. It's often perpetrated by family members who use children as weapons in adult conflicts. Damages them for years. Ryan's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Dolores called everyone to attention. Before dinner, I wanted to show everyone the new pieces from the estate auction. She gestured to a display cabinet filled with antique jewelry, emerald necklaces, diamond brooches, pieces that gleamed under the track lighting. Some of these are quite valuable. That sapphire set alone appraised at $40,000. Malcolm felt rather than saw Evelyn tense beside him. He caught Dolores's eye, saw the calculation there, and knew. This was it. The trap was being set. Beautiful pieces, Geneva Walters said, moving closer to admire them. You must be so careful with them, Dolores. Oh, I am. I keep meticulous records of every piece, photographs, appraisals. I'd hate for anything to go missing. The emphasis on the last word was slight, but deliberate. Malcolm's hand found Lily's shoulder, a protective gesture she leaned into naturally. Dinner was served on the terrace, Portland city lights spreading below them like scattered diamonds. Malcolm sat between Hugh Kelly and Nicole Preston, strategically separated from both Evelyn and Lily. His daughter was positioned at the far end of the table, surrounded by Constance, Dolores, and several other family members. Isolation. Classic manipulation tactic. I hear your practice is struggling, Hugh said, cutting into his steak. Patient retention issues? Where'd you hear that? Around. The professional community talks. Hugh's smile was slick. Must be stressful, trying to maintain appearances when the foundation's cracking. Malcolm had built his practice over 15 years. He had a waiting list of patients and a reputation for excellence. But lies, repeated often enough in the right circles, could damage even the strongest reputation. My practice is fine, Hugh. But I appreciate your concern. I'm just saying, if you needed financial help, we're family. Ryan and I have investment opportunities. I'll keep that in mind. He watched Lily across the table. She was picking at her food, uncomfortable under Constance's watchful gaze. Every few minutes, Dolores would lean over, saying something that made Lily shrink a little more into herself. After dinner, as people mingled over coffee and dessert, Malcolm made his way to Lily. She looked relieved to see him. Can we go home soon? She whispered. Soon, sweetheart. Why don't you have one of your cupcakes? You worked hard on them. I'm not hungry. Constance materialized beside them. The child needs to eat more, Malcolm. This is exactly what I mean about proper care. She's 11. Constance, not a doll you can manage. Don't you dare speak to my mother that way, Evelyn hissed, appearing suddenly. Her face was flushed, whether from wine or emotion, Malcolm couldn't tell. Then perhaps your mother should stop criticizing my parenting in front of my daughter. The confrontation was drawing attention. Perfect, Malcolm thought. Let them see who threw the first stone. Ryan stepped between them, playing peacemaker for the crowd. Hey, let's all calm down. Family dinner, right? No need for drama. But the damage was done. Malcolm could see the sympathetic looks directed at Evelyn, the disapproving glances at him. They'd been primed for this, he realized. Probably for weeks. Lily. Dolores's voice cut through the murmurs. Sweetheart, would you like to see the rest of the jewelry collection? I have some pieces upstairs that might interest you. I don't think, Malcolm started. Oh, let her go. Constance interrupted. For heaven's sake, Malcolm, must you control every aspect of the child's life? Lily looked at him, uncertain. He gave her a slight nod. This was it. The moment everything had been building toward. It's okay, Lily. Go ahead. He watched her follow Dolores upstairs, her small backpack, the one with the cupcake supplies and the hidden compartment, still slung over her shoulder. His heart hammered, but his face remained calm. Evelyn moved to stand with her mother and Ryan, the three of them forming a united front. Malcolm recognized the choreography. They were positioning themselves. 10 minutes passed. Malcolm sipped his coffee, made small talk with Geneva Walters about the Portland art scene, and waited. Then he heard it. Dolores' scream from upstairs. My necklace. The emerald necklace. It's gone. The room erupted. People rushed toward the stairs as Dolores descended, her face a mask of distress. Behind her, Lily appeared, looking terrified. I left it on the dresser when I was showing Lily the collection, Dolores said, her voice breaking perfectly. We were only looking at the pieces downstairs, and now. She pressed her hand to her mouth. It's gone. The one from the cabinet. Someone took it. All eyes turned to Lily. Now, let's not jump to conclusions, Ryan said, but his tone suggested otherwise. I'm sure there's an explanation. Check her bag, Constance said, her voice steel. I hate to suggest it, but if the child has been taking things. My daughter is not a thief, Malcolm said quietly. Then she won't mind showing us, will she? Constance's eyes were cold. Unless you have something to hide, Malcolm. The room was silent. Every face turned toward him, toward Lily, who stood frozen at the base of the stairs, tears beginning to stream down her face. Dad. Her voice was small, breaking. Malcolm moved to her side, knelt down. It's okay, sweetheart. I know you didn't take anything. Then prove it, Dolores demanded. Check her bag. Evelyn stepped forward. Malcolm, please. Just let them check. If Lily has nothing to hide. He looked up at his wife, saw something flicker in her eyes. Not concern for Lily. Anticipation. She was waiting for something. Fine. Malcolm stood, held out his hand to Lily. Give me your bag, kiddo. With trembling hands, Lily passed him the backpack. Malcolm opened it slowly, aware of every eye watching. He removed the cupcake container, the extra frosting tips, a small notebook Lily used for drawings. There, he said. Nothing. Check the pockets, Constance insisted. All of them. Malcolm unzipped the front pocket. Empty. The side pockets held a pack of tissues and a hair tie. Dolores's face was turning red. There's got to be a hidden. There's a zipper compartment in the lining, Evelyn said suddenly. I remember when we bought it. There's a small pocket in the back. Malcolm's fingers found it. The concealed compartment that he himself had placed the documents in that morning. He pulled the zipper slowly, reached inside. The room held its breath. What he withdrew wasn't jewelry. It was a manila envelope, sealed, with evidence written across the front in his handwriting. Dolores's face went white. Ryan stepped forward, hand outstretched. What is that? But Malcolm was looking at Evelyn. Her face had drained of all color, her lips parted in shock. Because she knew. In that instant, she understood that Malcolm had known all along. What's in the envelope, Malcolm? Constance demanded. He opened it calmly, pulled out the first document. This is a text message log, subpoenaed through my attorney last week, showing conversations between Evelyn, Ryan, and Dolores planning tonight's events. Including the phrase, we'll plant the accusation at the party, make it public, establish pattern of neglect. Silence. He pulled out the next paper. This is a financial statement showing that Ryan has been embezzling from Evelyn's trust fund. Money she doesn't know is missing yet, to cover gambling debts totaling $200,000. Ryan's face went purple. That's a lie. It's from your own bank, Ryan. Authenticated and notarized. Malcolm's voice was steady, clinical. In this, he held up another document, is a consultation agreement between Dolores and a private investigator hired to document Malcolm Dunn's unfit parenting, including instructions to create situations where his temper or negligence can be photographed. Where did you get these? Dolores's voice was barely a whisper. From my attorney, Walter Luna. Some of you may know him. Former prosecutor, excellent at discovery. Malcolm looked at each of them in turn. I've known about your plan for 3 months. The plan to destroy my reputation, take custody of Lily, and gain access to her trust fund from my mother's estate. The trust fund you all seem to forget is controlled solely by me until she's 25. Geneva Walters gasped. Other guests were backing away, distancing themselves from the unfolding disaster. Malcolm pulled out the final document. And this is my personal favorite. A recording transcript from 2 weeks ago, where the three of you discuss planting jewelry in Lily's bag during tonight's party to make the accusation seem credible. Except, he smiled without warmth, I never gave you the chance. I cleaned out her bag this morning, removed everything, and added only these documents and a recording device that's been capturing every word said in this house since we arrived. He pulled a small digital recorder from his pocket, hit play. Dolores's voice, tinny but clear. Make sure the child's bag is accessible. I'll place the bracelet in the side pocket when. Malcolm clicked it off. Evelyn was shaking. Malcolm, I can explain. Can you explain why you've been documenting false incidents of my neglect for 8 months? Can you explain why you consulted an attorney about emergency custody without telling me? Can you explain, his voice finally hardened, why you were willing to traumatize our daughter, to make her think she'd be accused of theft in front of her entire extended family, just to get access to money? It's not about money, Evelyn said, but her voice lacked conviction. Then what? Malcolm picked up Lily, who wrapped her arms around his neck. What was worth this? Constance found her voice. You've always been controlling, Malcolm. Always trying to keep Evelyn from her family. I've spent 12 years attending every family function, every holiday, every birthday. I've been polite to people who've looked down on me for not coming from money, for working a noble but poor profession. I've endured your insults and your manipulations because I loved Evelyn. He looked at his wife. Loved. Past tense. You can't prove any of this, Ryan blustered. Fake documents. Try me. Malcolm's smile was cold. My attorney has copies of everything. So does my accountant. So does Child Protective Services, along with a formal complaint about attempted custodial interference. And so does the State Bar, regarding Dolores's attempt to hire someone to manufacture evidence against a licensed psychologist. The room was deathly silent. But here's what's going to happen, Malcolm continued, his voice calm again. I'm taking my daughter home. Tomorrow, Evelyn, you'll find divorce papers on your lawyer's desk. The terms are simple. I get full custody. You get supervised visitation, pending a psychological evaluation. You sign away any claim to Lily's trust fund, and you don't contest the divorce. In exchange, I don't pursue criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud, child endangerment, and attempted extortion. You can't, Evelyn started. I can. And I will. Unless you agree to my terms. He paused. Ryan, you'll want to contact your own lawyer about the embezzlement. I've already notified the trustee of Evelyn's fund. And Dolores, whatever you paid that investigator, ask for a refund. He's been working for me for the last month, documenting your activities. Malcolm walked toward the door, Lily still in his arms. The crowd parted like water. At the threshold, he turned back. I gave you all the benefit of the doubt for years. I ignored my instincts because I wanted to believe family meant something. But you taught me a valuable lesson tonight. What's that? Constance asked, her voice bitter. That the most dangerous people are the ones who hide behind the word family, while stabbing you in the back. He looked at Evelyn one last time. Goodbye, Evelyn. Walter will be in touch. He walked out into the Portland night, Lily's arms tight around his neck, and didn't look back. The following weeks moved with the brutal efficiency of a well-executed plan. Walter Luna was a bulldog in Armani suits, and he went after Evelyn's legal team like a man possessed. The evidence Malcolm had compiled was overwhelming. Not just the text messages and financial records, but months of documentation showing the systematic attempt to isolate Lily from him and build a false case for his unfitness as a parent. Malcolm had been thorough. Security camera footage from their home showing Evelyn coaching Lily to say negative things about him. Email chains between Constance and a family court judge, a casual acquaintance, discussing Malcolm's case before it had even been filed. Phone records showing hundreds of calls between the conspirators in the months leading up to the party. But the most damning evidence came from the investigator Dolores had hired, a man named Sean Shun who'd been playing both sides from the start. Shun had approached Malcolm 6 weeks into his engagement with Dolores, uncomfortable with what he was being asked to fabricate. She wanted me to get photos of you losing your temper with Lily, Shun had explained in Malcolm's office. Said to provoke situations, maybe follow you to the park, bump into you, get a reaction. When I said I don't manufacture evidence, she offered me double. That's when Malcolm had made Shun a better offer. Help expose the entire conspiracy, and Malcolm would ensure he was well compensated and protected from any legal blowback. Chen had worn a wire to every subsequent meeting with Dolores and Ryan. The recordings were meticulous, detailed, and utterly incriminating. Now, sitting in the conference room of Luna and Associates 3 weeks after the disastrous party, Malcolm watched Evelyn's attorney scroll through the evidence with increasing despair. This is... The attorney, a silver-haired woman named Jacqueline Fitzpatrick, shook her head. Mrs. Dunn, I need to speak with you privately. They excused themselves. Walter leaned back in his chair, permitted himself a small smile. That's the sound of surrender. Think she'll take the deal? She'd be insane not to. The alternative is criminal prosecution and public humiliation. Walter sorted through his files. Plus, I've done some digging into Ryan's situation. The embezzlement is worse than we thought. He's into some dangerous people for money, not just gambling debts. When the trust fund gets audited, he's looking at serious prison time. 20 minutes later, Jacqueline and Evelyn returned. Evelyn's face was blotchy, her carefully applied makeup streaked with tears. She couldn't meet Malcolm's eyes. My client agrees to the terms, Jacqueline said stiffly. All of them. Walter pressed. All of them. The signing took another hour. Evelyn's hand trembled as she put pen to paper, signing away her custody rights, her claim to Lily's trust, her position in their shared life. Malcolm watched without satisfaction or vindication. He felt nothing but a distant, clinical observation of a process completing. When it was done, Evelyn finally looked at him. I never wanted to hurt Lily. But you were willing to. Malcolm's voice was quiet. That's what I can't forgive. Not the conspiracy, not the betrayal, not even the attempt to steal from her trust fund. But you were willing to traumatize our daughter, to make her feel like a criminal, to use her as a weapon. That's who you became. It wasn't my idea. Don't. He held up a hand. Don't blame your family. You're an adult, Evelyn. You made choices. Own them. She left without another word. Walter began packing up his files. There's still the matter of Ryan and the embezzlement. The trustees want to prosecute. Let them, Malcolm said. He earned it. And Constance? Dolores? Malcolm considered. Constance has enough public embarrassment. Her social circle knows what happened. That's punishment enough for someone like her. But Dolores? He thought of the woman who'd been willing to plant evidence on a child. Make sure the state bar knows about her attempt to manufacture evidence. She may not be a lawyer, but she was conspiring with one. Let her professional reputation burn. Walter nodded approvingly. Scorched earth. I like it. Not scorched earth, Malcolm corrected. Justice. There's a difference. 6 months later, Malcolm sat in his home office reviewing patient files when Lily knocked on the door. Dad? Can I ask you something? Always, kiddo. He closed his laptop, gave her his full attention. She settled into the chair across from him, the one his patients usually occupied. At 12 now, she was taller, her features losing their childhood roundness. But her eyes still held that gentle wisdom that reminded him of his mother. Do you think Mom ever really loved us? The question hung in the air. Malcolm could have deflected, could have given her a comfortable lie. But he'd built his career on honesty, and he owed his daughter the same. I think she loved us the way she was capable of loving. But some people, he chose his words carefully, some people love conditionally. They love what you can do for them, how you make them look, what you provide. It's not the kind of love that sustains a family. Because real love protects people, Lily said softly. Like how you protected me. I'll always protect you. He moved around the desk, sat beside her. What brought this on? I saw her today. At the coffee shop near school. She was with Aunt Nicole and some other people, and she was laughing. Lily's voice wavered. She looked happy, Dad. Like nothing happened. Like we never existed. Malcolm pulled her into a hug. People like your mom and her family, they're very good at pretending. It's how they survive. They rewrite history in their heads until they're the victims. Until they convince themselves they did nothing wrong. Does that make you angry? Not anymore. And it was true. The initial rage had faded months ago, replaced by something calmer, but no less resolute. I spent energy being angry, being hurt. But anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So I let it go. How? By focusing on what matters. You. My work. Building a good life. Evelyn and her family. They're living their consequences. Ryan's facing charges. Dolores's reputation is ruined. Constance has been iced out of half her social circles. I don't need to be angry. The universe handled it. Lily was quiet for a moment. Dad? Thank you. For what? For being smart enough to figure out what they were doing. For protecting me. She looked up at him, her eyes bright. For being my dad. Malcolm kissed the top of her head. Best job I ever had. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Malcolm stood on his back porch watching the Portland sky fade from amber to deep blue. His phone buzzed with a text from Walter Luna. Ryan Blackwell sentenced today. 5 years. No early release. Thought you'd want to know. Malcolm deleted the message without responding. Ryan's fate, like Evelyn's, was sealed by their own choices. He felt no triumph in it. Only the quiet satisfaction of knowing Lily was safe. His practice was thriving. Patients found something reassuring about a therapist who'd been through his own crucible and emerged stronger. He'd started writing a book about parental alienation and family manipulation, and several publishers had expressed interest. Lily was excelling in school, making friends, joining the chess club where she was already dominating her age bracket. She saw her mother once a month in supervised visits. Evelyn's choice to minimize them, claiming they were too painful. Malcolm suspected she simply couldn't face what she'd lost. He'd started dating again, cautiously. A colleague had introduced him to Sarah Sweeney, a medical malpractice attorney with kind eyes and a wry sense of humor. They'd had dinner twice, and she'd met Lily once. A careful, gradual process. Sarah understood the need to protect his daughter, having gone through her own difficult divorce. But Malcolm wasn't rushing into anything. He'd learned that trust was something earned slowly, proven through consistent action, not pretty words. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Malcolm? It's Geneva Walters. He was surprised. Geneva had been at the party, part of Constance's inner circle. He hadn't spoken to her since that night. Geneva, what can I do for you? I wanted to apologize. Her voice was tentative. I should have done this months ago, but I was embarrassed. Ashamed. I was part of that scene, Malcolm. I watched them plan it, and I didn't say anything. Why are you calling now? Because I saw Lily today. She was at the coffee shop near her school, and she looked so happy and healthy and whole. And I realized you'd given her the greatest gift a parent can give a child, safety. You protected her from people who would have used her, including her own mother. Not many people have that kind of courage. Malcolm was silent, processing. I also wanted you to know, Geneva continued, that Constance has been effectively ostracized from every social organization in Portland. What she tried to do to you and Lily, it didn't sit well with people once the truth came out. She's basically a pariah now. I didn't ask for that, Malcolm said. No, but it happened anyway. Actions have consequences, even for people like Constance Tran. She paused. I know I can't undo my silence that night, but I wanted you to know, I see you, Malcolm. I see what you did and how you did it. You didn't just win. You won with integrity. That matters. After she hung up, Malcolm stood in the gathering darkness, feeling something shift inside him. Not forgiveness for Evelyn or her family. They hadn't earned that, and perhaps never would. But something else. A closing of the circle. A sense that justice, imperfect as it was in the human world, had been served. Inside, he could hear Lily laughing at something on her computer. The sound filled the house, chased away shadows. Malcolm Dunn had learned a fourth essential truth, that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, but simply living well. Building a life so good, so solid, so filled with genuine love and joy that the people who tried to tear you down become irrelevant. He went back inside, closed the door on the past, and went to see what his daughter was laughing about. The future, it turned out, was much more interesting than revenge. But Malcolm's story wasn't quite finished. 3 months after Geneva's call, a new wrinkle appeared. Malcolm was in his office between patients when Walter Luna called, his voice urgent. We have a problem. Evelyn's filed a motion to revisit the custody arrangement. Malcolm went cold. On what grounds? She claims to have new evidence that you coerced her into signing the original agreement. She's alleging duress, saying you threatened her with false criminal charges to force her surrender. That's insane. Everything we had was legitimate. I know, but she's hired new counsel. Benjamin McClure. Malcolm whistled low. McClure was notorious, a scorched-earth litigator who specialized in high-conflict custody cases and didn't care about truth, only winning. If he was involved, someone was funding this. Evelyn couldn't afford him on her own. Who's backing her? Malcolm asked. Working on finding out. But Malcolm, McClure doesn't take cases he doesn't think he can win. He must have something, or think he has something. After hanging up, Malcolm sat in the gathering silence of his office. Through the window, he could see the Portland rain beginning to fall, drops streaking the glass like tears. They weren't done. The Tran family, or whoever was behind this, wasn't finished trying to take Lily from him. Fine, Malcolm thought. Neither am I. He pulled out his laptop and began making calls. First to Sean Chun, the investigator who'd helped him before. Then to a forensic accountant he knew who specialized in tracking money. Then to a colleague who worked in tech security. If someone was funding Evelyn's new legal assault, Malcolm would find out who. And why. The answer came faster than he expected. You're going to love this, Sean Chun said 3 days later, spreading files across Malcolm's dining room table after Lily had gone to bed. The money from McClure's retainer? It came from a shell corporation called Tran Family Holdings. But that's not the interesting part. What's the interesting part? Tran Family Holdings is owned by a holding company in the Cayman Islands, which is owned by another shell company, which eventually traces back to Hugh Kelly. Malcolm frowned. Ryan's old business partner? I thought he distanced himself after Ryan got arrested. Publicly, yes. But here's where it gets juicy. Chun pulled out another file. Hugh and Ryan were involved in more than just legitimate business. I've been digging into their crypto venture, the one you declined to invest in. It was a scam. A Ponzi scheme that collapsed 6 months ago, right around when Ryan got sentenced. Let me guess. Investors want their money back. Investors want someone's head on a pike. And with Ryan in prison, Hugh needs a scapegoat. Or, Chun smiled, a new source of funds to repay the victims and avoid prosecution himself. Lily's trust fund. Bingo. It's worth $12 million, right? More than enough to satisfy the defrauded investors and leave Hugh with a comfortable cushion. But to access it, they need custody of Lily, which means Evelyn needs to get custody back from you. Malcolm felt ice crystallize in his veins. So they're using Evelyn to try to regain access to my daughter's money. And she's either too desperate or too stupid to realize she's being used again. Chun leaned back. There's more. McClure has been quietly deposing people who were at the party. He's trying to build a narrative that you orchestrated the whole thing, that you planted the evidence yourself and manipulated events to make Evelyn look bad. That's partially true, Malcolm admitted. I did orchestrate the reveal, but only to expose what they were actually planning. I know. You know. But in court, with the right spin, it could look like entrapment. Like you manufactured a crisis to steal custody. Malcolm stood, paced to the window. Rain continued to fall. The city lights blurred and soft beyond the glass. What would you do? He asked quietly. Chun considered. McClure is expensive, but he's not creative. He follows a playbook. He'll try to paint you as controlling and manipulative. Evelyn as a victim of coercive control. He'll minimize her role in the conspiracy, claim she was pressured by her family. He'll argue that you've alienated Lily from her mother. So we need to prove Evelyn is actively conspiring with Hugh Kelly. Which won't be easy. She's smart enough to know her communications might be monitored. Chun pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. But Hugh isn't as careful. I've been tracking his movements. He's been meeting regularly with someone at a downtown hotel. Always the same room, always pays cash. Who? Can't confirm yet. But I can find out. Chun's smile turned predatory. How far are you willing to go? Malcolm thought of Lily, asleep upstairs, dreaming whatever dreams 12-year-olds had. He thought of the past 6 months of stability, of watching her blossom without the weight of adult conspiracies on her shoulders. He thought of Evelyn, so willing to sacrifice their daughter's well-being for money. As far as it takes, he said. The surveillance took 2 weeks. Sean Chun was thorough, professional, and patient. He documented Hugh Kelly's meetings, tracked his communications, and built a file that would have impressed federal prosecutors. The woman Hugh was meeting wasn't Evelyn. It was Nicole Preston, Evelyn's cousin, the one Malcolm had noticed looking at him with predatory interest at the party. They're having an affair, Chun explained, showing Malcolm the photographs. But that's not the interesting part. What is? Nicole is the one who's actually orchestrating this. She's smarter than Hugh, and she's the real connection to Evelyn. They're cousins, but they're also best friends. Nicole's the one feeding Evelyn the strategy, telling her what to say to McClure. Chun pulled up bank records. Nicole also has her own financial problems. Messy divorce, bad investments. She's in debt to the tune of $300,000. Hugh promised her a cut of the trust fund if they can get custody for Evelyn. So Nicole manipulates Evelyn. Hugh funds the legal battle, and McClure provides the legal muscle. Exactly. And here's the best part. Nicole's been recording her conversations with Evelyn. Insurance policy, probably, in case things go south. But she's storing them in a cloud account that uses embarrassingly weak security. Malcolm looked at his investigator. You accessed her account. I did not, Chen said primly. That would be illegal. But someone who uses password 123 as their password shouldn't be surprised if their data becomes publicly accessible due to security vulnerabilities. He handed Malcolm a USB drive. Everything you need is on here. Conversations where Nicole coaches Evelyn on what to tell McClure. Discussions about how to split the trust fund. Plans to isolate Lily from you once they regain custody. Malcolm plugged the drive into his laptop. Listened to the first recording. Nicole's voice, bright and encouraging. You just need to seem sympathetic, Ev. Cry a little. Talk about how Malcolm controlled you. Made you afraid. McClure will eat it up. Judges love the abused wife narrative. Evelyn's voice, uncertain. But that's not what happened. Malcolm never. Does it matter? Do you want your daughter back or not? Do you want to fix your life? Because this is how you do it. You tell the story that gets you what you need. Malcolm's hands clenched into fists. The recordings went on. Hours of them. Nicole and Hugh discussing the trust fund like it was already theirs. Making plans for what they'd do with the money. Laughing about how easy Malcolm would be to discredit because he's too ethical to fight dirty. The final recording was dated 3 days ago. Nicole's voice was sharp, frustrated. Benjamin says we need something more concrete. Something that makes Malcolm look dangerous. We need an incident. Hugh, what kind of incident? I don't know. Maybe Lily says something at a visit? Maybe she tells Evelyn she's afraid of him? We stage something. No. Evelyn's voice, firm. I'm not scaring Lily. I'm not making her afraid of Malcolm just to win a case. Then you're going to lose, Nicole snapped. And stay broke. And alone. Is that what you want? Silence. Then Evelyn, quietly. I just want my daughter back. Then do what needs to be done. Malcolm stopped the recording, sat in the darkness of his office. The rage he'd thought he'd let go of came roaring back, hot and bright and consuming. They were going to use Lily again. Try to frighten her, manipulate her, make her doubt the one parent who'd protected her. Not while he had breath in his body. Walter Luna listened to the recordings with increasing satisfaction. This is good. Better than good. This torpedoes their entire case. How do we use it without revealing Chen accessed Nicole's account illegally? We don't use it directly. We do something better. Walter's smile was sharp. We let them use it against themselves. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Malcolm would feed false information to Nicole through a controlled source, someone Nicole trusted, but who was actually working for Malcolm. That information would be designed to make Nicole overplay her hand, to get her to make a move that would expose the conspiracy without Malcolm having to reveal the recordings. The controlled source was Geneva Walters. When Malcolm had called her, explained the situation, she'd agreed immediately. I owe you this, she'd said. And frankly, I'm disgusted by what they're trying to do. Using a child like that, it's monstrous. Geneva was perfect. She was still connected to the Tran family social circle, still had coffee occasionally with Nicole. She was above suspicion. She called Nicole 2 days later, arranged lunch. Wore a wire provided by Sean Chen. Over salads at a downtown bistro, Geneva leaned inconspiratorially. I probably shouldn't tell you this, but I heard something about Malcolm Dunn. Nicole's interest sharpened immediately. What did you hear? You know Sarah Sweeney? The attorney he's been seeing? I've heard of her. Well, apparently she's been spending a lot of time at his house, including overnight. With Lily there. Geneva lowered her voice. I heard it from someone who lives on his street. Says the woman's car is there several nights a week, sometimes until morning. Nicole's eyes gleamed. Really? I just thought. I mean, if Evelyn's trying to show that Malcolm's creating an unstable environment for Lily, exposing her to his romantic relationships inappropriately. Geneva trailed off meaningfully. That's actually really helpful, Geneva. Thank you. The trap was set. 3 days later, Sean Chen reported that Nicole had hired a private investigator, not Shun, someone else, to document Sarah Sweeney's visits to Malcolm's house. The investigator was camping out on the street, taking photos, logging times. She took the bait, Chen said, pleased. Now we spring it, Walter replied. The spring was simple. Malcolm invited Sarah over for dinner, made sure it was visible and documented. They had a lovely evening. Lily present the entire time, everything completely appropriate. Sarah left at 9 p.m., as she always did on school nights. But the investigator logged it as overnight visit, because that's what Nicole had paid him to find. The fabricated evidence made its way to Benjamin McClure, who incorporated it into his amended custody filing. In bold letters, the filing claimed Malcolm was exposing the minor child to inappropriate adult relationships and overnight visitors, creating an unstable home environment. Walter Luna pounced. In his response, he included security camera footage from Malcolm's house showing Sarah arriving and leaving, with timestamps. Affidavits from neighbors confirming the investigator had been parked outside for days, clearly trying to manufacture evidence. Cell phone records showing Nicole had hired the investigator and instructed him what to find. A sworn statement from Sarah Sweeney detailing the actual nature of her relationship with Malcolm and her limited, appropriate contact with Lily. But he held back the recordings. Those were insurance. The hearing was scheduled for a rainy Thursday morning. Malcolm sat with Walter in the courtroom, watching Evelyn arrive with Benjamin McClure. She looked thinner, tired, her expensive clothes hanging loose. Judge Helen Sullivan was known for being no-nonsense and having zero tolerance for manipulation in custody cases. McClure went first, presenting his case that Malcolm had coerced Evelyn into an unfair agreement, that he was controlling and manipulative, that the custody arrangement needed to be revisited for Lily's well-being. Then he presented the investigators evidence of inappropriate overnight visits. Walter stood calmly. Your Honor, if I may address the alleged inappropriate visits? He submitted the security footage, the affidavits, the phone records. Watch McClure's face go pale as he realized he'd been set up. Your Honor, Walter said, this is a pattern. The respondent and her associates have repeatedly attempted to manufacture evidence against my client. First at the family party 6 months ago, and now with this fabricated claim about overnight visits. We have documented proof that Mrs. Dunn's cousin, Nicole Preston, specifically hired an investigator and instructed him to create evidence of inappropriate behavior, even when none existed. Judge Sullivan looked at McClure. Counselor, did you verify this evidence before submitting it? McClure stumbled over his words. Your Honor, I relied on the investigator's report. An investigator hired by the respondent's family member to manufacture evidence. The judge's voice was icy. Did it not occur to you to question the validity? Before McClure could respond, Walter dropped the final bomb. Your Honor, we have reason to believe that this custody motion is not motivated by genuine concern for the minor child, but by financial interests. Specifically, access to the child's $12 million trust fund, which is controlled by my client until the child reaches age 25. He submitted documentation of Hugh Kelly's business failures, the defrauded investors, the shell corporations, the money trail leading to McClure's retainer. We have evidence that Hugh Kelly, former business partner of Ryan Blackwell, Mrs. Dunn's brother, currently serving time for embezzlement, is funding this custody challenge in order to gain access to the trust fund through Mrs. Dunn. We further have evidence that Mrs. Dunn's cousin, Nicole Preston, is actively coaching Mrs. Dunn on how to manipulate these proceedings. Judge Sullivan turned to Evelyn. Mrs. Dunn, stand up please. Evelyn stood, trembling. Is what Mr. Luna is saying true? Is someone else funding this motion? Evelyn opened her mouth, closed it, looked at McClure, who was carefully studying his papers. Mrs. Dunn, I'm going to ask you directly. Are you filing this motion because you genuinely believe your daughter is in danger, or because someone has convinced you that this is a way to access her trust fund? Silence stretched. Malcolm could see the moment Evelyn broke, her shoulders sagging. I just wanted her back, she whispered. I just wanted my daughter back. But Nicole said, she said this was the only way, that we could fix things, that I could fix things with Lily, but first we needed to get custody, and then, the judge prompted, and then we'd have access to the money to pay off debts, to fix the problems Ryan created, to make things right. Tears streamed down Evelyn's face. But I never wanted to hurt Lily. I swear I never wanted to hurt her. Judge Sullivan looked at McClure. Counselor, I'm recommending you to the state bar for ethics violations. You knowingly participated in a custody challenge motivated by financial fraud. McClure's face went white. The judge turned back to Evelyn. Mrs. Dunn, I'm dismissing your motion with prejudice. That means you cannot file another custody challenge without substantial new evidence of actual danger to the child. Additionally, I'm reducing your visitation to once per month, supervised, pending a psychological evaluation. And I'm ordering you to participate in a parenting program focused on the harm of parental alienation. She looked at Malcolm. Mr. Dunn, I'm sorry you and your daughter have been put through this. The original custody agreement will stand. Additionally, I'm issuing a restraining order preventing Nicole Preston, Hugh Kelly, or any member of the Tran family besides Mrs. Dunn from contacting you or your daughter. The gavel fell. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Malcolm stood in the rain with Walter, watching Evelyn leave with McClure, the attorney already distancing himself from his client. We should pursue charges against Hugh and Nicole, Walter said. Fraud, conspiracy. No, Malcolm said quietly. No, they're done. McClure will be disbarred or suspended. Hugh's investors will come after him when word of this gets out. Nicole. He shrugged. She'll live with knowing she almost destroyed her cousin's relationship with her daughter for money. You're being generous. I'm being practical. More legal battles mean more time in court, more exposure for Lily, more years of this hanging over our heads. Malcolm watched the rain fall. I won. They lost. That's enough. Walter clapped him on the shoulder. You're a better man than me. No, I'm just a man who wants to go home to his daughter and move on with his life. That evening, Malcolm sat with Lily in their living room. She'd been anxious all day, knowing the hearing was happening, understanding in her 12-year-old way that her future was being decided. We won, Malcolm told her. Everything stays the same. You're safe. Lily threw her arms around him, and Malcolm held his daughter close, feeling the tension drain from her small body. Did Mom try to take me away again? She asked, voice muffled against his chest. She tried, but she wasn't doing it for the right reasons, and the judge saw that. Do you think she'll ever just want to be my mom? Without all the other stuff? Malcolm pulled back, looked into his daughter's eyes. I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. But even if she doesn't, even if she can't be the mother you deserve, you're going to be okay. Because you've got me, and I've got you, and that's enough. That's enough, Lily agreed, and settled back against him. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the rain through the window, the city lights beginning to glow in the gathering dusk. Malcolm's phone buzzed. A text from Sean Chun. Hugh Kelly just filed for bankruptcy. Nicole Preston's husband is filing for divorce and subpoenaed her financial records. Thought you'd want to know. Also, Geneva Walters says hi and she's proud of you. Malcolm smiled, deleted the message. Another text came in, this one from Sarah Sweeney. Heard you won. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate. My treat. Lily, welcome, of course. He typed back. We'd love that. Thank you. Who's that? Lily asked. Sarah. She wants to take us to dinner tomorrow to celebrate. I like Sarah. She's nice. And she doesn't treat me like I'm a baby or a trophy. High praise, Malcolm said, ruffling her hair. Dad. Yeah. I'm glad you're my dad. I'm glad you're the one who wanted me. Malcolm's throat tightened. I'm glad too, kiddo. Gladder than you know. They ordered pizza, watched a movie, and Malcolm tucked Lily into bed at 10 o'clock, kissing her forehead the way he'd done since she was born. Sweet dreams, Lily Bean. Sweet dreams, Dad. He closed her door, stood in the hallway of his home, and breathed in the quiet peace of safety. Of battles won not through destruction, but through truth. Of justice served through patience and preparation. Malcolm Dunn had set out to protect his daughter, and he'd succeeded. Not by being cruel or vindictive, but by being smarter, more prepared, and more willing to fight for what mattered than those who tried to take it from him. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility. Sarah Sweeney and her kind eyes. Lily's chess tournaments and school plays. His work helping families heal. A life built on solid ground, free from manipulation and conspiracy. He'd learned his fourth truth, but now he understood a fifth, that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in building a life so good that their absence becomes its own reward. Malcolm smiled, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Tomorrow would be a good day. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.